Our school, Morgan Park Academy, started in 1873 as Mount Vernon Military and Classical Academy. This ran for about 2 decades. In 1874, the name was changed to Morgan Park Military Academy. The purpose of the academy was to prepare boys for college and to fit cadets at Annapolis Academies or West Point. The new Baptist Union Theological Seminary built Morgan Hall and sold it to the academy. Later in 1882, the academy had to share facilities with the seminary. In an 1879-80 brochure, it says that Principal Henry T. Wright and Commanding Captain Ed N. Kirk Talcott, who is supposedly of the seminary, were in charge of the military school. Other records from the early days were burned in a fire in 1894. 5 years before this occurred, Joe Hall burned down. In the years between 1891 and 92, Mr. William B. Owen helped the academy survive. Owen later became the principal of its Chicago Normal School and had to assemble and tutor students in the facilities of the Theological Seminary. During these years, references were made to the Owen School, though there was never official name change. The seminary then built Blake Hall, where the BAC now stands. The new building contained classrooms, a library, and a chapel. In 1879, Dr. William Rainey Harper joined the seminary and taught Semitic languages. In 1886, he was persuaded to join the faculty of Yale University, where he achieved a very good reputation. And he was asked by John D. Rockefeller to serve as the first president of the University of Chicago. Before accepting, he had a few conditions. One, that there would be total freedom of teaching for everyone in the university and himself, and two, that he be allowed to make it a great university and not just an ordinary all-American college. Also, it is believed that he required that the Baptist Seminary be relocated to the university campus as its divinity school, and our school, which was at the time Morgan Park Military Academy, to be taken over by the university for a preparatory school, to which Rockefeller surprisingly agreed. In 1892, a new period of the school began. The school's name was changed to Morgan Park Academy of the University of Chicago. It was opened at fall the same year as a co-ed non-military institution and continued to be both a boarding and day school. Morgan Hall served as a dormitory for young women. Blake Hall is used for recitation and assembly. The academy grew rapidly. The campus was already expanded by the seminary's land, so the university began the construction of more buildings. West Hall was built in 1897 at 112th near Bell. East Hall was built in 1898 at 112th and Lafayette. They were used as dormitory buildings. In 1901, the university opened a large multi-purpose gymnasium located between East and West Hall. In 1900, since the female enrollment declined so greatly, the university decided to drop the co-ed policy. In 1897, Harry Delmont Abels completed his BS degree cum laude at the University of Chicago. Dr. Harper appointed him, and so Abels joined the academy instructional staff a year later. Around the same time, Hayden Evan Jones entered the University of Chicago in 1894 to get a degree in Semitic languages and literature. This department was personally headed by Dr. Harper, who suggested Dr. Jones join the academy. Dr. Jones completed his degree in 1898 and became an associate instructor in history a year later. These two men, Abels and Jones, immediately started to work, implementing the standards set by Dr. Harper. Despite the work of these men, enrollments declined between the years 1900 and 1905. It leveled off at 200 boys. Prices rose, and the university began to reevaluate its need for subsidization of the academy. Dr. Harper died in January 1906, and after his death, the yearly deficit had to be fixed. That same year, President Harry Pratt Judson and the University Board of Trustees made a decision, and it was to close the University Academy at Morgan Park. Thus an era ended and a new one began. In 1907, Morgan Park Military Academy was under the management of George A. Byrode and Harry Abels. In 1909, Abels became a colonel, and with the help of a few others, kept the school under private management. Because of being operated under private management, the school began to struggle financially. At this, Colonel Abels made a petition to the state of Illinois requesting a charter that stated that Morgan Park Preparatory School was a not-for-pecuniary profit educational institution. The charter was granted in December, and under this charter, Colonel Abels became the superintendent and a board of trustees was formed. When the school finally got back on its feet between 1914 and 1918, the board bought the south and middle campus land. Then they purchased the land formerly occupied by the seminary's Morgan Hall and Laboratory building for a parade and athletic field. Although the school had still been military under Abel's supervision, it was not until 1919 that the name was changed back to Morgan Park Military Academy. In 1920, the lower school had been added to the school. In 1926, the board claimed an 80-acre parcel of land on Spider Lake near Traverse City, Michigan. This land became a cadet retreat named Camp Traverse. Shortly after the camp was established, alumni proposed an alumni building as a memorial to those alumni who had died in the World War. The building went up in 1927. It would house a 450-seat dining hall and meeting rooms on the first floor. And we called the fellowship room, along with reading nooks, on the second. The third floor consisted of smaller offices and a balcony, overlooking the larger social room on the second floor. There were also science laboratories in the basement. All of the above costed $185,000, and it is said that the Alumni Memorial Hall rivaled any such private school facility in the country. Because of overcrowding in 1927, the board drew plans for North Barracks. 2nd and 3rd floors would consist of cadet quarters. North Hall became at $150,000 the finest private school dormitory in the Midwest. Renamed Hanson Hall after the recently deceased J.C. Hanson, the barracks was first occupied in fall of 1928.
In 1933, the Board of Trustees decided upon making MPA a co-educational, non-military junior college after many meetings with other educators and organizations in the community. Sometime around 1933 and 1934, grades 1 through 4 were established. In the February of 1934, the Fathers Club, Board of Trustees, and Alumni Association raised $15,000 to build a fence around the North Campus athletic field. In 1935, 1 year later, the field was named in honor of Henry Abels. 2 years later, the Fathers Club built a top-quality track around Abel's Field. In 1935, 1 year later, the field was named in honor of Henry Abels. 2 years later, the Fathers Club built a top-quality track around Abel's Field. In the later 1930s, enrollment had risen to 150 day students and 200 boarding students. Land purchases for the faculty eventually gave the school over 30 acres. Hardly any changes occurred at MPMA during the 1940s because of World War II. Many of MPMA's alumni served and died in World War II. Throughout this time, the school continued its classification by the U.S. War Department as an essentially military school, and as such supported an infantry junior unit of the Reserve Officers Training Corps. In 1945, Colonel Abels retired after 47 years of service, and Colonel Jones stayed active until his death in 1946. After noticing the opposition to military establishment, the need for a first-rate college preparatory program, cultural values, and demography, the board began discussing what changes should be made. At the end of the 1958 school year, the controversial and crucial decision was announced. The school would now become a non-military, co-educational institution, as opposed to an all-male military boarding school. In 1958, revenues were down drastically. The enrollment declined to 341, and the physical nature of some buildings was so bad that they had to be taken down, and others had to be completely redecorated. In 1959, new headmaster Frederick B. Withington and assistant headmaster James B. Draper joined the new Morgan Park Academy.
That was Blake Hall.
By 1960, grades 1 and 2 were added and combined with grades 3 through 6 to form the lower school, whose classes were held in East Hall. The middle school, 7th and 8th grade, had their classes in Hanson Hall, and the upper school met in West Hall. In 1961, Blake Hall was condemned and burned through arson in 1962. That same year, Abels Field was sold because there were not enough finances. In 1963, the middle school moved to West Hall, and the lower school moved to Hanson Hall. One year later, East Hall was taken down.
In 1966, David A. Jones was appointed headmaster and still remains headmaster. Pre-first was added in 1965 and in 1967. Plans were drawn for the construction of a new building, Barker Hall, which was to be named after England Johnson Barker. In 1968, Barker Hall opened and the lower school moved there. The middle school, now consisting of grades 6, 7, and 8, and the upper school moved to Hanson Hall. During this same time, West Hall was taken down. In 1969, the Beverly Arts Center on the former site of Blake Hall was finished and is used by the school. Most of the funding of these new buildings came from E.J. Barker's son, Mrs. Bear, and Mrs. Charles Pillsbury. There have been some major changes in the school over the past 20 years. There used to be a campus store and small cottage where a faculty member lived. A football team which later became the soccer team. The girls got athletic teams and several buildings have been taken down. The most important changes are the improvement of the curriculum and quality of instruction. Today the Academy enrolls 475 students in pre-first through the 12th grade. Now that the Academy is headed into the next millennium and century, It is with the same spirit of dedication and the same determination to achieve excellence which has characterized the school throughout its history.